following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to Gate City Chronicles. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and today I'm joined with Eric Brand and Dave Robbins, of course, the infamous Dave Robbins, representative, or honorable representative. Today we're going to be talking about Legacy Playground. And Dave, Eric, give us a little, what is this Legacy Playground?
Sure. Legacy Playground actually started back in December of 2011. Dave and I and 21 others went through Leadership Greater Nashua program, which comes from the Nashua Chamber of Commerce. Mm-hmm. Every class that goes through the Leadership Greater Nashua program is asked to do a community project. We talked about many different types of projects that we could do, and the idea came to us back in December of 2011 to do an all-accessible playground.
You all took a vote to
Correct.
Right.
The class unanimously decided when this idea came forward to move forward with this project. We then worked another 6 months up towards our graduation in June, where we had to do a presentation on what our project would be. We worked with city officials, the Park Rec superintendent, Public Works, trying to look at different locations where we felt was a good location to place an accessible playground. Mm-hmm. So we've spent quite a bit of time since even that June going through numerous public hearings. I want to say the count we're at is about 25 different public hearings that there's been some type of testimony in regard to Legacy Playground. Mm-hmm. A lot of great and some negative at that as well. But we are dedicated to this as long as this is taking, just to kind of continue moving forward and make this the best project we can.
Now, how did you reach out to the public officials? Was that your responsibility as far as?
Well, no, it was all of our responsibility, and because we wanted to do something with the city, of course, we reached out to the mayor, mm-hmm. and she provided some guidance and helped us get before the Board of Public Works, because the Board of Public Works has to make decisions about what goes on in the city as far as recreational activity, parks and recreation. And we did that, went through about almost a year of hearings from March of 2013 to December 2013.
For a playground?
For a playground. And in December of 2013, the Board of Public Works voted 4-1 to recommend to the members of the Board of Aldermen that this be cited in Greeley Park. The aldermen are very involved in this because Greeley Park holds a special place in the city ordinances. It is the only park that is directly, essentially, supervised by the Board of Aldermen. And that was over a period of years, it was determined that Greeley Park needed special protection. And the aldermen decided they were going to take over significant supervision. So anything to do with Greeley Park has to go before the Board of Aldermen. Okay. And that's why.
Now, there were a number of sites, obviously, that you were looking at earlier, right? Fairgrounds.
So we started off working with Park Rec Department.
Yeah.
And literally looking down a list of 55 sites. A lot of the sites were very easy to take off of. For instance, some of the sites included a couple of the public pools in the City of Nashua, so you immediately take some of those off. Some of them had recent playground additions, such as Club Social. I'm sorry, not Club Social, Park Social.
Was that a Freudian slip? Just kidding.
You know, there was a very easy nature to be able to pull out a lot of the different parks. So it left us with about 24 parks that we actually went out and toured, took a look around at these, and tried to come up with criteria that would help us decide is it a good, suitable location? Based on what we could fit in there for equipment, what the cost of the equipment would be, and if there would be any input from the city as far as cost associated with that as well. So when we got done this vetting process, we narrowed it down to 3 different sites. We had Greeley Park on Cleveland Street, which is basically on the Fairgrounds Middle School property.
Right.
There is an existing tennis court there that has kind of been roped off, kind of abandoned at this point in disrepair. And there's also a winter ice skating rink. Then we also had Sergeant Ave that came down to the finals. There's a playground there adjacent to the public pool.
That used to be Centennial Pool, right? Or
I believe so.
yeah, that's how I remember that, as Centennial. If you'd have said Centennial Pool,
And
I
then
remember that.
Rotary Pool is the one over across the street from Fairgrounds. So those are the 2 pools. So we had the Sergeant Ave location, and then we also had Greeley Park that came up. As we looked at Greeley Park, we tried to come up with many different, we looked at all the sites with the same factors, but as we looked at Greeley Park, it kept having more and more positives of why we would go there. We had a survey that went out. We had, I think it was over 250 people that responded to a survey of things that they'd like to see included with this playground. So one of the top things was bathrooms. So as we vetted out that list of 55, it was easy to remove sites that didn't have bathrooms or sites that didn't have the utilities to easily make it make the bathrooms an easy addition to those areas.
Right.
So we looked at Greeley Park. The bathrooms at Greeley Park, they're ADA accessible. Are they ADA compliant? No, but there's very minimal things to make that ADA compliant. And speaking with
What is ADA?
the American Disability Act.
Okay.
So there are certain requirements, and at different points in time since the act was enacted, that there's been changes to that over the years. I can't sit here and tell you I'm an expert on all of the different changes. I just have a good understanding of them.
Let me ask you another question.
Sure.
Did you come up with the design first?
We didn't come up with a design first. We really had to work with a location because same with building a house.
Right.
You've got to find a plot of land that you want to build a house on, and then you design the house to fit on the land. Well, it's the same with the playground. Are there some components, just as with a house, that you can take and move them from one area to another and with a lot of similarities? Absolutely. But you want to make sure you're working with the land. So give you an example. For one of the ADA requirements for ramping, every inch of rise, you have to have 12 inches of run.
Because of the grade. Right.
Because of the grade, in order to make sure that it's easy for wheelchairs to get up
Right.
or other mobility issues to get up to the top of wherever you're trying to get to. So as we're working with grades, for instance, which I'll show in a few minutes, one of the clips that I wanted to show shows one side of the main structure starting at a 3-foot height and one starting at a 2-foot height. So the area that we're looking at Greeley Park has a slight slope to it, and as it's graded out and leveled off, it will allow for the structure to fit in there and actually save about $100,000 in equipment cost.
Really? That's amazing.
Each 12-foot section of ramp and platform and railings cost about $20,000. So by starting off with that height and working with grades, particularly at Greeley Park, it allows us to get more playground and less ramp.
When you're looking at Greeley Park, you're looking at the restroom area, you know, the stoned area. Where are we looking at where the park will be? Where the swings are? Or?
Correct. So right now, if you're facing the bathhouse from Concord Street, to the left and the other side of the gazebo area where the existing playground structures are, is the area that we're currently looking at.
Is there an environmental impact with this?
Is there an environmental impact on that
Yeah.
side? No, we're not looking to take down any trees with the removal of this.
Right.
It will actually add quite a bit of value to that area and help make it more of a peaceful section, in my opinion.
Right. Interesting. So, you know, you grow up with Greeley Park. Everybody climbed the tree. Everybody made their mark in the tree and all that kind of stuff, right? We've all done it.
Well, I didn't mark the trees, but I know what you mean.
I did. I was a kid. So, you know, anyway, but we all have very, very fond memories of that area, and obviously it's got to be pristine. We want it to stay as beautiful as we remembered it. Will this add to the beauty to it, or will this be this big monolith at the park?
You know, that's some great questions, and those were some of the questions that were posed to us that we really tried to make sure as we went through this vetting process, as we listened to the community, we listened to neighbors, we want to make sure we address some of those. I do have quite a few different clips in here, and in
Sure.
some of those clips actually shows some 3D images of the playground that I could, if you'd like, I could walk you through
Sure.
a couple of those.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So if we go to the first clip,
Okay.
So in this first clip, what this basically shows is an existing layout of the current playground equipment. So it's showing and identifying some swings that are currently there to the far left, a slide just east of there, some additional swings, a tot lot that was donated to Greeley Park by the Nashua Exchange Club years ago, picnic table, and some small little like backhoe digger that digs in the sand over there.
Right.
So as we look at that, and then the next slide clip that I would show you shows an overlay basically taking up the same area for the same equipment. This equipment is in some aspects a little bit larger. It allows for the ramping systems and making sure that everything is ADA accessible with it, ADA compliant. So you have more of a modern day monkey bars,
Yep.
more of modern day equipment. And I'll show you a few pieces of that equipment in a few of the next slides. This next clip that I'll show you, which can get confusing to most people, and that's why I show the first two clips first. This is more of an engineered drawing that shows the pathways that would lead through, because as you're trying to have the ADA compliant sector to it,
Right, you're going to need the,
you're going to need, from this lower area, you're going to need a pathway to lead up to the swings. So this
Right.
area here is where, to the far left of the screen and upper, just underneath the design label, is where the actual existing swings are. So
will that be a paved path, or?
what we're looking to do is have bricks cover that area and still have that within the ADA regulations for the grade and the slope.
Right.
So when you look down more to the middle of the area, you'll see a green planted area just to the left of the path. That's where an existing structure would go, kind of replacing where the tot lot is. Then just to the left of that, there's what's called a spider. If I'm getting my name correct. I don't have it in front of me to really look at thoroughly, which is almost like more of a modern day monkey bars. Then we have another more expansive type of monkey bars up getting closer to the bend.
Now, these are, when we're looking at these are for kids that aren't ADA as well as ADA? I mean, they'll enjoy it as equally?
Correct. This is meant for all,
Right.
all accessible. And in
Okay.
some pieces of this will be boundless as well, which I'll explain that in a second.
Yeah.
So there's challenges to this for a typically developing child. And then there's also a segment on here that actually will work well with some of the tots that could use this. Then it is all that much more accessible to everybody. Even the ramping system, as we spoke with many people and designers of the playground, to make the ramping system more of a double wide. So if somebody's going up with a chair and you've got kids or other adults that want to go a little bit faster or run by somebody, that's what kids do on a playground,
Yep.
there leaves room for that.
I know we're going to see some more slides, but I'm just,
Sure.
how do the aldermen feel about this? Is this, hey, let's go do this, or are there reservations right now?
Well, there was an ordinance proposed by one alderman and co-sponsored by 6 others. So there are definitely 7 aldermen on board with this. When I say definitely, I mean this is their sponsors or co-sponsors.
Right.
As far as the other 8 aldermen, they have raised, various ones have raised some very pertinent and very good questions. And one of the things that we've been doing is trying to gather all the information they've asked for and answer these questions. Think that we have pretty much done that. And right now, the aldermen have voted and the mayor has signed an ordinance to, or resolution, excuse me, to hire an outside firm for $5,000, $2,500 put up by the city, $2,500 put up by folks who are not necessarily in favor of the site. They've pledged that. And have this outside firm, Institute for Human Design, Boston, which is well respected, come and look at several different proposed sites and give their evaluation. I think I can say that we are pretty confident that what's going to happen is Greeley Park is going to come out on top.
Okay.
And hopefully, that's the case, this will go forward smoothly.
Is there a public sentiment? Are you getting any feedback? Have there been any feelers? I know we're talking with the aldermen. Obviously, they represent the public. But have you, heard from outside, are there articles in the Telegraph, or are there any people writing letters to the editor or anything like that, this is a great idea, this is a bad idea? Are you getting a feel?
Sure. As with any topic that goes before the community, there's a lot of people that are for this. And on the same side, there are some people that are against this or have reservations or still have questions that they want to have answered. As Dave was saying just a minute ago, I believe we've answered all, if not 98% of the questions that have been asked of us as we're going through.
What's one of the toughest question, if you don't mind me asking? What was the hardest one that you both had to do a head check on this?
Well, what we're talking of everybody involved in this really wants to make sure that Greeley Park is protected and is.
And you all can agree on that part.
We all can agree on that part. And is only enhanced by whatever is done or not done. And I think the real crux of the matter is there are a number of us, and I think an overwhelming majority of citizens of Nashua, who believe that replacing a playground that's as much as 70 years old and run down and deteriorated with a new modern playground that is universally accessible, used by everybody of every age, basically without costing the city any money for the playground footprint. The city will be responsible for infrastructure, and that's think that that's a good idea. There are people who feel that there should be absolutely no change in what is now in Greeley Park. And if I'm interpreting what they're saying correctly, that the only thing that should happen is minor repair and maintenance.
Right. So I haven't been in the playground lately. I'm sorry.
Well, next year.
Yeah.
Come on down.
Well, what I'm just trying to think of, I think were the little spring rocking things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they could come up with a better idea. We've come a long way, baby, since that. Maybe there could be some things that you can modernize. I mean, there have been modernizations along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, maybe Eric goes through and he could show you specifically some of the things that I think will answer and address what you're talking about.
Well, what's our next slide right here?
Sure. Our next slide. We're looking at a front view of the playground. Within that, you could actually go even to the next slide that shows the back view of the playground.
Is that one right there?
That's the next one I've got in front of me.
Okay.
You can see that it starts on two different sides, ramping up to get to a middle. So you can enter one side, exit from the other. As I'm looking at the back view.
Why don't you hold that up so that they can.
Sure.
Yep.
So as I'm looking at the back view, starting on the left side and going up, that's more of the tot design section. And there's also areas that are called owl's nests that are attached to this, where somebody going up in a wheelchair, this owl nest, which is like an outcrop at one of the landings, allows for somebody in a chair to be able to go up, their knees can go underneath it, and they can actually access whatever type of piece that's on there.
Yep.
Whereas if it was just flat against the wall, they might not be able to get to it in front of them, where they'd have to try to get to it on their sides.
I could just give a little brief testimony. We just had recently the Nature's class with Broad Street. We went to Groton, Mass. to do a Nature's class, and they had a playground similar to this. It was well utilized. It was worn down, but it was well utilized. And what warms your heart is the fact, some of the kids that were a little more acrobatic, they were definitely up in the crow's nest. And they were, that was the place to go. It seemed like they'd corner it and they'd crowd into there. If a child couldn't get to that because of a wheelchair, you could see how they would feel left out.
Absolutely.
And this seems to provide for that.
Absolutely. Back when the original playground was built, we don't have an exact date, but all the dates seem to put it about 70 years old.
70 years ago, yeah.
From everything that we've pieced together. Nobody seems to have anything else that rebuts that. When you think about what the playground systems were like 70 years ago, children with disabilities, adults with disabilities, they were institutionalized at that point.
Yeah.
When you look back in history and you look at the closing of the Laconia State School, which is what the state's institution was,
Yep.
now you're integrating all of those children and adults back into the community. And it's our responsibility as a community to be able to make sure that everybody has access to
Sure.
all of those types of things. So as we
May I look at this one?
Sure, absolutely. So as we go back into that even for a second, some of the different components that are listed within that design, I know you can't pick out every little thing on looking at a 3D image of it,
Right.
but we were also looking at not just mobility issues, we were also looking at sensory issues, we were looking at hearing impairments, visual impairments, and trying to make sure that the components that were chosen within this really help to allow everybody to have some type of inclusion with this. Trying to keep within the nature of the park even. There's a main tree fort section in there, which we've seen many great pictures of what these tree forts look like, trying to help it blend in within its natural environment.
Yep.
Looking at the colors, keeping with browns, beige, and greens, trying to get that to blend in with the natural environment.
Right.
Is it the typical, bright colors that most people would see and kids would appreciate that on certain playgrounds? It's not. But we're also trying to be respectful and conservative going into Greeley Park and making sure that we're not making an impact that's detrimental to the park.
It will complement it instead of standing out like
Absolutely.
a circus.
Why don't you show a couple more slides about how it will complement? Let people make their own decision on this.
So on this next clip, this is kind of more of a modern day monkey bars, as I was saying before. The Xscape has many different pieces to it. Even on one side, as we're trying to work with some of the accessibility factors to it, there's some lower hooks and bars where somebody can go underneath that's using a wheelchair.
What will be underneath this? Will it be sawdust? Will it be gravel?
Sure.
Will it be rubber?
Great question. So all of the playgrounds that are installed these days are required by law to have some type of impact-resistant material. Right now we're looking at using artificial turf underneath this area,
Right.
and also to connect from area to area. It tends to have a longer lifespan than some of the other materials that we're looking
That's
at.
the kind of stuff that's in Stellos, isn't it?
Stellus. That came.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's.
There's most of that is very similar to what the artificial turf would be for this playground
Yeah.
area, but there are some differences with the type of like rubber beads and things
Right.
like that they use in there to help with the impact resistance on it.
Okay.
With this next clip, you can see most of these are just kind of typical standard swings that you'd have at any playground. You've got typical swings in the middle, taut swings to the right, and to the left you have some adaptive swings that have hard backing so that somebody that has low muscle tone, if they're placed in there, they're not going to fall over side to side. In this next clip,
This is my favorite, the web crawler. I like this a lot.
so with this web crawler, you've got more of a smaller, just climbing structure for kids to go on, and the spider is small enough where you could have two people that could actually just lay on it almost like a hammock. You could take somebody out of a wheelchair, they can lay in there, feel relaxed, peaceful, listen to the birds.
Is that wire or is that or
It's
is it a rubbery type of?
kind of like a bungee cord almost
Okay.
type of material. Then the next piece, which I really enjoy on this next clip, you have some of these tree stumps and small boulders that are placed out throughout the ground area. Now what this does, this actually really creates a boundless section to the playground, where if you're in a wheelchair, you can weave in and out around these things, and you could have your sibling, you could have a friend, parent, child, whatever, that can bounce and jump from piece to piece, and you can be right there with them
Yeah.
as best you can, and
Yep.
really making it a playground for everybody with some of those pieces.
Now, Kevin, if I may, there have been folks who have said, well, wait a minute, this is going to cost the city a ton of money. And the city will be asked to provide some infrastructure. Note that the city's been trying to replace the playground at Greeley Park for more than 10 years, 10, 15 years. It's been in the capital budget request for over a decade. It has also not just replaced the park, but there's been talk for at least 10 years of having an ADA accessible playground here. What we are doing, what our Legacy Greater Nashua, the organization, is doing, is offering the city a gift of up to $250,000 for the footprint of the playground. We have heard public testimony that no matter where this might be put, there would be infrastructure costs. Public testimony has been made saying that Greeley Park would be the least expensive infrastructure, be the least disruptive. Dozens of medical professionals, health professionals, specialists in all sorts of disability have come and testified at some of these 25 meetings that A, we really need this kind of thing, and B, Greeley Park appears to be the best location for it. And maybe, Eric, you could bring up the slide that talks about some costs and how those would work out.
Sure. On this next clip here, it kind of gives you a breakdown a little bit. One of the things that was asked of us, how much does the equipment cost? So on here, we've got the different structures that have been broken out. The main equipment piece is just over $189,000. Then we have the artificial turf that's about $49,000. Bringing the total price tag of this just under $239,000. Now that's for the equipment cost. Now, from some of the city numbers that I've heard, as Dave was mentioning just a moment ago about what the city's contributions would be. The city contributions, to my understanding, and I cannot speak on behalf of the city, but this is just what was said during the last infrastructure meeting by one of the aldermen. You have about $36,000 in actual site work for preparation for this. There are a few other costs that were spoken about that evening that are not required to be done as part of this playground. There's been some different things I've seen in newspapers or social media that kind of say the opposite, that these things need to be done. These things are not required. The bathroom, how it sits right now, does not need to have any changes to it in order for us to construct a playground. The city is also choosing to make some changes to that bathroom to make it ADA compliant.
Okay, so they are working with you on this.
Absolutely.
For sure. It's just
Absolutely.
I'm not. Are you going to accept some volunteers to help make this happen?
Absolutely. We love volunteers.
Kevin, come on down.
Yeah.
If you're volunteering, we appreciate
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
But to help reduce the cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would.
So part of that cost is based on us as a group bringing in an abundance of volunteers to be able to get this built and constructed over the course of a few weekends. With that price tag for the equipment, the manufacturer, the representatives from the manufacturer actually bring in a couple of their installers to come and supervise to make sure that everything is installed according to spec.
But all of this would be done under the auspices of the City Park and Recreation. I mean, they would be the ones in control of this.
If people want to contact you and be part of this and help make this happen, how do they get in contact with you?
Well, best thing to do is call me at 978-500-9475. That'll be the best way to get to me. And Eric?
And you could also call, actually I don't want to say call on here, but if you actually go to our website for legacyplayground.com, correction, I believe that's NashuaLegacyPlayground.com. On there's a contact information sheet, and depending on what the question is, would depend on who else would get back to you.
Closing thought, 10 seconds.
10 seconds, closing thought.
It's a playground replacing a playground where a playground is. It's a gift to the city of almost $250,000 at a time when budgets are very tight.
And on that note, thank you very much for joining us on Gate City Chronicles.
Thank you.
Kevin.
All right, thank you very much, and appreciate everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching Gate City Chronicles. Please contact them if you want to volunteer or support this effort, and we'll see you next week. Gate City Chronicles has been sponsored by Avard, the Dean of Clean, a local carpet cleaning here in Nashua, New Hampshire. You can contact them at 521-7657. Thank you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.